This video will contain audio and visual spoilers for Resident Evil 3 Remake. If you do not wish to be spoiled, I recommend clicking off the video right now. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis is a PlayStation 1 classic that released in 1999. It had a very quick turnaround time from the original RE2, and it had a very low budget, which caused a lot of problems for developers. However, this specific game actually sold like hotcakes, which made Capcom a lot of money. That's another story for another day. Today I want to talk about the remake. It released on April 3rd, 2020. It is Resident Evil 3 Remake, and although Nemesis has dropped from the title, you will see him again, and 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 again. Yeah, this dude pops up a lot. Nemesis is going to be a thorn in your side throughout a majority of this game. However, he acts a little bit different than Mr. X, which was Resident Evil 2's thorn in your side. And just for clarity's sake, I completed the campaign on normal difficulty. I will be going back and playing on hardcore. And of course, just to kind of give you a little bit of a background, I played and absolutely adored the Resident Evil 2 Remake campaign, played as both Claire and Leon, so I basically plan on telling you how it is. Now, there were two different stories that you're able to play in Resident Evil 2 Remake, and unlike that game, you can't do that here with Resident Evil 3 Remake. There's only one story, you play it, and you switch on and off from Jill to Carlos. So when that happens, it's not jarring, it makes sense in the story. It kind of jumps around a little bit on the timeline to kind of explain what's going on to progress the story, and I noticed compared to the original 1999 version, there are some pretty big sections that have been taken out and some puzzle-solving sections that just don't exist, which I found kind of strange. In fact, if puzzle-solving is something that you liked from Resident Evil 2 Remake, this is something that you're going to really miss in this game. I noticed that compared to Resident Evil 2 Remake, this campaign is pretty dang linear. It basically boxes you in and makes you go directly where you need to go. Backtracking doesn't really need to happen in this game like it does in Resident Evil 2. In fact, there's a couple of forced backtracking sections, but for the most part, if you want to backtrack, it's to go pick a lock that you maybe saw beforehand, or to get some extra ammunition from a box that you may have missed. But like I said before, this campaign's pretty linear, and when you have Nemesis basically chasing you and pushing you into the next area, there's really no reason to go back, and in some cases, you can't, because walls will collapse, things will happen, and, well, you'll find yourself moving forward faster than before. And that ties into the overall length of the campaign, which, if you're a competent player, and you're just playing casually, you're not trying to speedrun it or anything like that, you can beat this in under 3 hours and 40 minutes. My clear record is not impressive at all. I died 7 times, and I'll explain why in just a moment when we get to that point. But even just playing casually, watching the cutscenes multiple times, and dying 7 times, I still beat it in under 3 hours and 40 minutes. That's kind of crazy to me. It gets even crazier when you realize that this $60 title doesn't have anything else other than the campaign itself. There's no secondary story where you play as Carlos and learn about the beginnings of Umbrella and learn about the Umbrella Corporation from the inside, which I was really hoping for. There's no 4th survivor mode or a tofu survivor mode. None of that exists. The only thing that you get after you complete the game for the first time is a shop. This shop will allow you to purchase infinite ammo weapons. You can actually get coins that you carry in your inventory. It allows you to pick up the lockpick before the game begins. You can get alternate costumes. All of these are earned by challenges in game. Completing those challenges will give you the points. The points will then be earned on this, and then you can just play through the campaign again with your new fun toys. Now, that's always been a fun thing in the Resident Evil series, and I'm not knocking it. I'm actually happy to play and earn some stuff in the shop. I was just hoping for more backstory to the Umbrella Corporation and learn more about Carlos and what his team had to go through leading up to when he found Jill. I completely knocked this commentary off the rails, but that's kind of how my reviews are. I want to talk about Nemesis now because I started talking about him before, but then we talked about other things. Nemesis looks weird. Can I just say that? He looks weird. I mean, growing up, I always had this vision of Nemesis, and I thought that that vision was completely achieved in Resident Evil Apocalypse, a movie that people don't really like, but I actually enjoyed because Nemesis was in it. I always thought Nemesis to be this badass character with huge gaping mouth and, you know, crazy staples in his head, looking badass like this. But when I see this Nemesis, all I can think of is crooked nose. That's all I can think of. Thank goodness that there are multiple forms of Nemesis in this game, and you will encounter every single one of them. But I think the first form that you encounter which is the same one that you encounter in the demo if you've played that, you don't really see this one that much. In fact, you only have a couple of different times where you need to evade this one, and then once you move on to the next part, that's the end of it. And similar to the original 1999 version, when you take down Nemesis during one of these areas where he's pursuing you, he will drop a box, and this box can contain various items like weapon upgrades and more. I'm not going to spoil most of it, but you guys can get some pretty good stuff from this, so I highly recommend doing that. Other than that, that's basically it. You don't actually kill Nemesis like you would in the original version where he's down for the count and he won't chase you for that time that you're in the courtyard or wherever you're at. He kind of does what Mr. X does, and he goes down on his knees, but then he comes back, I think it's like 20 seconds later, and then boom, he's pursuing you again. This game also has a dodge maneuver, which does come in handy. You could dodge zombies that are lunging at you. You can dodge Nemesis that's throwing things at you, or of course, jumping in front of you, trying to punch you, and evading him will allow you to roll out of the way and continue doing whatever you're doing. However, those 7 deaths that you saw, I got myself into a couple of different pickles unintentionally by using this dodge maneuver. In fact, sometimes I would dodge directly into a zombie, which would then grab me immediately because it takes time for you to get out of that rolling animation. The other time was I rolled into a wall, which then pinned me against it with Nemesis about to punch me in my skull. And that happens very, very quickly. Nemesis will pursue you very fast. He's much faster than Mr. X. He could jump directly into your direction, and that takes us to the next point. Unlike Mr. X, that's constantly pursuing you, Nemesis doesn't do that in this game, and I thought that that's what would happen with all the rumors that were circulating before the game released, that he could go into safe rooms and all that stuff. That just doesn't happen. In fact, Nemesis just shows up in predetermined locations, meaning as soon as you get to one area, you can decide whether to stagger him and get the armory case, or you can just completely ignore him and run to the next location, and then he's gone. Yeah, and a lot of the times you can't go back either because it always ends up in some sort of big explosive over-the-top thing happening, like you falling from a building, or, you know, buildings crumbling around you, or a doorway completely exploding and not allowing you to backtrack. This kind of adds to that, and I continue to carry the same exact opinion through all of the Nemesis forms. And don't get me wrong, they look badass in this game. It looks amazing, which we'll talk about momentarily. I just never felt like Nemesis was a threat. In fact, I had way more trouble when it came to dealing with the hunters. The hunters themselves were freaking crazy, and they're super fast. Throughout that hospital scene, they took so much ammunition to take down. In fact, I found myself running out of ammunition a lot in this game, which caused me to have to strafe around enemies and kind of force my way through areas without actually killing them, which made me scared because I didn't know if I was going to have to go back and deal with a hunter. But then I realized after playing the rest of the game, I never had to backtrack like that, so then my worries were kind of calmed down. But yeah, the hunters were way bigger threat to me, especially when you're in a little area and this thing's coming at you, it's going to slice your neck open. That's crazy. So at this point, you might be thinking, well, you probably hate this game. But to be honest, I don't. In fact, I really, really liked it. I loved it, in fact. I had a really good time, even though the campaign was short. I did enjoy seeing all of the new characters, being able to fight the hunters, going through the city, exploring the sewer in a new way, looking at the police department from a different angle. This game allows you to see certain events leading up to the events of the Resident Evil 2 remake. For example, Marvin getting bit and how that happened. I'm not going to spoil that, and I'm not going to show you what happened because it's a pretty important moment, but overall, I really, really had a good time. I would say that there's a couple big mistakes that this game made. First off, coming in at $60, I don't really think that this should be a $60 title. I think that this should be at most a $40 title, specifically because there's less content here than there was with RE2 Remake. And you know, we are in 2020, so there's always a chance that they could, for some reason, add a DLC at some point. So we could potentially see a Mercenaries mode or something like that added. And when I say Mercenaries, I think of RE4, and I would love to see RE4 made in this engine. Please, Capcom, hear us out. We would love it. Resident Evil 4 is on every single console and mobile device known to man. I think saw someone playing it on a toaster once. But anyway, that's another video for another day. Resident Evil 3 to me If I were to rate it out of 5 stars, I'd probably give it a 3.5. I think that's pretty fair. It's a pretty average game, but it's super enjoyable, especially to the Resident Evil fan. I really had a good time with it. I'm definitely going to replay it. I'm going to try to get the infinite rocket launcher. I think that's going to be fun. It's always fun to just mess around like that. But overall, Nemesis, not as important as I thought he would be to the game itself. And the story, it's kind of all over the place, but even so with that, it's still a fun time, and I would recommend anybody out there play it, but maybe just wait for the price reduction because it's probably going to come sooner than it did with the Resident Evil 2 remake. That's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about in this review. I know it was a little different, but that's Resident Evil 3 for you. It's different. Thank you guys so much for coming out to the video today. If you enjoyed it, drop a like, subscribe for more, and of course, don't forget to ring the bell icon to join the notification squad, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace.